teenage depression and exercise. The details of these data have been used to explain more than just effects on a teenager's grade point average. They've been used in an attempt to understand vexing, tough stories like Dee's story. Dee, that's a shortened version of her name, was a teenager interviewed by PBS for a story on teen suicide. She shared there was a point when almost every experience in her life felt like it was fissuring: school, relationships, family. She began to lose all hope of handling the tension herself, which is a chief herald of a major depressive episode. Unable to find her own way out, Dee decided that pills could do it for her. She downed 7 Advils, 1 Prozac, and 22 extra-strength Tylenols and went to bed, hoping never to awaken. But 90 minutes later, she did awaken, and thankfully, she got cold feet. Dee tried throwing up, but only blood came out. She tried to alert her parents. She could barely move at the point by screaming and turned on all the lights she could reach. Dad rushed her to the good doctors at the ER who, after some intense moments, saved her life. What Dee didn't count on was how her behavior would seize up her family's life. A willingness to exert permanent solutions in response to temporary problems meant she couldn't be left alone. Dad hauled her mattress into the parents' bedroom. Her sister wouldn't speak to her. No one trusted her, fearful she'd try suicide again. Plus, she was scared out of her mind. Dee was still suicidal a week later, but she also saw what an emotionally ugly thing suicide was to inflict on people who loved her deeply. She promised in her heart not to do it again, which means this story has something of a happy ending. Many such stories don't. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among kids 10 to 14 years of age, and the 2nd leading cause in the 15 to 34 demographic. Overall, more than 12% of teenagers aged 12 to 17 have had at least one major depressive episode of the type that triggered Dee's pill binge. Teenage girls attempt suicide more often, but teenage boys succeed more frequently, with suicide rates nearly 4 times higher. Those who live through the experience have a tough time, for depression generally follows a scorched earth policy. Depression naturally contributes to poor health, poor grades, and poor social skills. Left untreated, the consequences may be long-term. Depressed teens are much more likely to stay depressed when the teen years are over. With depression, life is a battle hymn sung in a never-ending minor key. There is good news, especially for kids like Dee who want out. Depression is very treatable by a variety of measures, a few surprising. It's now clear that the star subject of this chapter, exercise, can exert powerful antidepressant effects. The influence is so strong that the American Psychological Association, APA, recommends mental health professionals make it a major player in a comprehensive treatment regimen. One landmark study showed that rigorous exercise was as successful for treating major depression as antidepressant medications in adult populations. And a follow-up study 12 months later showed that subjects who continued to exercise had a much lower chance of relapse. Exercise can't replace psychotherapy, and it shouldn't be a substitute for taking meds. But the APA is serious when it says that exercise deserves a guest of honor place setting at the therapeutic table. What about our favorite age group? We've made quite an effort to understand that adolescent brains are unlike any other brain at any other age. For one, mental health issues are a big deal to the teenage brain. You might recall that the average age of onset for any mental health issue, including depression, is about 14. There's no guarantee that what is seen in older populations, or younger ones for that matter, will also be true for adolescents, except that in this case, the research shows that the conclusions aren't different. The effects of exercise on adolescent depression have been studied in detail, and the results are good news. One meta-analysis, a collated synthesis of the findings of 11 papers looking at exercise and adolescent depression, came to a singular conclusion. According to lead author Tim Carter, quote, "Based on our findings, physical exercise appears to be a promising antidepressant strategy for 13 to 17-year-olds, close quote. There are two important aspects to these findings that deserve our attention. First, it didn't seem to matter whether the exercise involved a mindless robotic workout or an engaging organized sport. Mood was still positively affected, meaning that unlike EF, depression was a less finicky player when it came to letting exercise do its thing. Second, the most powerful effects of exercise programs were observed for those teens whose depression was already being managed by a qualified therapist.